Hello, I am Jacqueline Lyon. Welcome to my channel, Lyon Editing, where I help you refine your craft of writing. I work for the novel editing company, Dot and Dash LLC. I am an editor. We offer full services from beta reading to copy editing and author coaching. If you'd like to get in contact with us, just hit up the links below in the description section. Alright, today I would like to talk to you about building atmosphere in your stories. Atmosphere is important because it's a promise to your reader. It's a promise of jokes, if you have a comedic or romantic comedy feel to your story. It's a promise of scares if you have a spooky or uneasy atmosphere. It's a promise of wonder if you have a fantasy or science fiction story. Atmosphere is a hook for your reader in order to turn the next page because it's giving you a promise of what is going to come. Furthermore, atmosphere builds tension within a scene. The more description you have, the more tension you build with the reader so that they want to keep turning the page, and the payoff will be all the better. Atmosphere is all important for a good hook and building good tension within a scene. Alright, so let's get started. I will teach you how to build atmosphere in your stories today by using one of the masters of atmosphere himself, Edgar Allan Poe. He is a great author of horror, and one of the ways he does this is through building that atmosphere in his stories. First, I am going to read you a passage from one of his short stories called The Fall of the House of Usher. This is a short story that has to do with a friend visiting another friend who happens to be sick and an unfolding of events that is very spooky. But here is the beginning of the story. I'll just read a passage for you. The Fall of the House of Usher. It was a dark and soundless day near the end of the year, and clouds were hanging low in the heavens. All day I had been riding on horseback through country with little life or beauty, and in the early evening I came within view of the House of Usher. I do not know how it was, but with my first sight of the building a sense of heavy sadness filled my spirit. I looked at the scene before me, at the house itself, at the ground around it, at the cold stone walls of the building, at its empty eye-like windows, and a few dead trees. I looked at this scene. I say with a complete sadness of soul, which was no healthy earthly feeling. There was a coldness, a sickening of the heart, in which I could discover nothing to lighten the weight I felt. What was it, I asked myself? What was it that was so fearful, so frightening in my view of the House of Usher? This was a question of which I could find no answer. I stopped my horse beside the building, on the edge of the dark and quiet lake. There I could see reflected in the water a clear picture of the dead trees and the house and its vacant, eye-like windows. Poe is doing several things within this piece in order to build up tension that will later be paid off within the story. The first thing you want to do when you build atmosphere is choose the emotion you want to invoke. Obviously, Poe is a horror writer, so unease is the feeling he wants to go for. So number one, choose your feeling. Number two, you want to build atmosphere through the five senses: touch, taste, smell, sight, and hearing. Poe does this in several places, especially with touch. He does a lot of textile kind of feeling within the piece. He says cold often, cold stones. There was a coldness. Furthermore, he has a sense of heaviness. He says heavy sadness, and I could discover nothing to lighten the weight I felt. These are negative emotions that create a sense of being confined, cold, and heavy. Furthermore, he uses listening, but more along the lines of quiet, soundless. He goes somewhere and there's this tense quiet that shows you that there's something wrong going on. Finally, he repeats dark often. Humans are naturally afraid of the dark, so it makes sense to describe the lake as dark and the house as dark, with something unknown within. So build up your scene through the five senses. And then number three, choose your setting wisely. Setting is all important within atmosphere because it's the box that holds everything together, that you can do the set dressing to make everything have that feeling you want to invoke. Poe, in this case, chooses a house. Houses can represent many things, especially lineage. This is about a young man whose family used to be great and how it's being fallen into decay. So a house is a perfect representation of this family that has fallen from grandeur, as well as that a house is a place that people often feel safe. It's kind of turning that safety on its head to emphasize unease. Something is wrong, something is falling apart. That unsafe atmosphere is a way to invoke horror. Next, you want to choose your imagery carefully. Within this story, the house is often described with human-like attributes. Even in this passage alone, we hear vacant eye-like windows. So this house has eyes, and not only is it alive, is it breathing, it's watching you. And that sense of being watched is also a very human fear. So the house is alive, it's watching you, it's tangible and dying. This is also emphasized within the sickness that is repeated, the imagery of sickness. He says, no healthy earthly feeling, a sickening of the heart. The friend that the main character is visiting is also sick, and this decay, this feeling of helplessness to something you cannot change is a human fear as well. You know, a sickness that gets inside you and you can't see or fight against. And a house that has that same sickness is a good choice. Finally, imagery that is also brings home his themes is the lake at the end. This is a dark, quiet lake, and it has clear reflection in the dark surface. This gives a feeling of unknown and creepiness, as well as more themes of watching. That the lake, it was watching you, it's reflecting everything you can see within. So that's also something you can use in your own stories. So choose carefully the things that you use and the things that you want to put into the text itself. You want everything to have a purpose. If you have a gun on the wall in Act 1, you want it to go off at one point. Everything should have a reason, or else you can just take it out. Finally, if you want to build atmosphere, you have to pay attention to your word choice. Poe is especially good at word choice. Something you hear repeated within this story is a sense of lack. Words that invoke lack. Soundless, little life, empty, no healthy feeling, nothing, I could find no answer, vacant. These are all a sense of something without, a void of sorts. This is especially successful in horror because you can fill that space with your own fears. This is why they put movie monster reveals at the end of films, because otherwise the watcher, the reader, can fill in the thing that scares them in that lack, in that thing they cannot see. Furthermore, the void is much scarier than something that's definable, that's something with boundaries and limits and that you can see and understand. The ununderstandable is much more scary, something you cannot define, the boundaries which you do not know. So using those words of lack, of not knowing, of vacancy, that is especially poignant within any sort of horror writing to build atmosphere. So word choice is a very good way to get your points across and especially build that tension that is all important into either scaring your reader or telling a joke or building wonder within the story. And you can do this with other genres as well, just by 1, defining the emotion you want to get in the reader, and then 2, building it with the 5 senses, 3, choosing your setting carefully, 4, choosing your imagery carefully, and then 5, being very careful with your word choice as well. So those are 5 things you can do to build atmosphere, learning from Edgar Allan Poe and his teachings. Again, I am Jacqueline Lyon. This is my channel, Lion Editing. I work for the company of Dot and Dash LLC. If you'd like to get in contact with us, just hit up the links below. Furthermore, if you'd like to see a video in the future with a different topic, such as more writing warm-ups or anything else, just hit me up in the comments section, leave a comment, let me know what you'd like to see in the future, and I'll see you later. Goodbye! Hmm.